When I heard it, I'm just looking. It was unbelievable, but I was there, and I know for a fact none of that happened. How they just explained it, but my truth will get out here, and I hope everybody understand. That's really it. I can't even say too much right now, because it's just gonna feel like I'm going against them, they going against me. We just going back and forth, but the truth is gonna come out.
This is Cold Case Chronicles True Crime, where every silence hides a secret, and every story deserves to be heard. We uncover the mysteries buried in time, the victims, the motives, the truths long forgotten. Subscribe now and join us as we dive into the world's darkest cases, because every smile hides a story, and every mystery deserves a voice.
There is a particular kind of shadow that follows a secret, a darkness that doesn't dissipate when the lights come on, but only grows more defined. For 5 months, the name Romeca has been whispered in the hallways of justice and in the quiet corners of social media, always accompanied by a lingering, unanswered question. Her death was a tragedy, yes, but it was a tragedy that felt incomplete. There were pieces of the puzzle that didn't just go missing. They were being held back. Today, the silence that Carlos carefully maintained has been broken by the person who knew his shadows best. A friend has come forward, dropping a bombshell that changes the architecture of everything we thought we knew. It turns out that while Romeca was building a life, Carlos was building a doorway. And behind that doorway was a secret affair that makes the 5-month wait for the truth feel like an eternity. I want to welcome you to the channel. We look for the truth in the shadows of cold cases and closed files. If you value this kind of deep dive investigation, please consider subscribing. And as we begin this journey together, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Whether you're joining us from the United States, Canada, Australia, or anywhere else in the world, leave a comment below. It helps us remember that these stories, though local, touch hearts across the globe. To the outside world, Carlos was a man of quiet, almost stoic devotion. His grief over Romeca's death was a public performance, a curated mourning that allowed him to hide in plain sight. He played the part of the grieving partner with a precision that was, in hindsight, too polished. There were no outbursts, no messy displays of sorrow. There was only a controlled, calibrated sadness. This was his camouflage of perfection. But perfection is a heavy burden, and 5 months later, the weight of what he was hiding has finally caused the structure to collapse. The crack didn't come from a police interrogation or a forensic lab. It came from the private reality of a friend who could no longer carry the secret Carlos had entrusted to him. This bombshell, the revelation of a secret affair, doesn't just provide a motive. It provides a psychological map of Carlos's withdrawal. It shows us a man who was emotionally disengaged from Romeca long before she took her last breath. While she was leaning in to stabilize their relationship, he was leaning out into a fantasy world where she no longer existed. Romeca was a woman of agency and hope. She was a person who believed in the power of connection, who spent her energy trying to bridge the growing gap she felt between herself and Carlos. We see her through the lens of her friends and family as someone who was constantly reaching, constantly trying to communicate, unaware that the man on the other side of the table had already moved on. The character contrast here is devastating. Romeca's openness meeting Carlos's silence, her truth meeting his elaborate fabrication. The psychological deterioration of their relationship was a slow, internal decay. For Carlos, the secret affair wasn't just a distraction, it was an exit. It was a world that felt lighter and responsibility-free. In this fantasy life, he didn't have to be the man Romeca needed him to be. He could be whoever he wanted. This alternate emotional world became his solution to the weight of his real obligations. As the affair deepened, his engagement with Romeca became a functional performance. He was there physically, but his mind had already crossed the border into his new life. 5 months after her death, the timeline is finally being corrected. The missed connections of the early investigation, the unexplained absences, the sudden defensiveness over his phone, the subtle emotional flatness, all make sense now. The friend's revelation provides the missing link between the man we saw on camera and the man who was living a double life. This wasn't a sudden break. It was a planned departure.
They've been using the media too. Anything I do, hey, look, I bet you when you beat ass, right? Like say if you're into a girl, you beat ass, it's a problem. You know, I put out like, yeah, I went to her job and tell her because she used to clock out of work. I don't know what the fuck she used to do, come fuck my shit up. And that's the right thing you're supposed to do, try to get help. And they even bash me for that. Oh, you going to a job and doing this? Hell yeah, I'm tired of it. Fuck me up. That ain't when she smacked. Talking about when she smacked hands up or smash that up. Stop letting her clock. I mean, act like she about to take a break and come over and smash my shit up. Cause she worked close to my house. Like, stop that. And they talking about that's wrong. They just nobody about to keep going through that shit. That shit. She probably knew I was soft though, man. You know, I ain't used to be on that. She used to go crazy. I used to try to get the fuck out of there. Yeah. She used to be on Demon Town. I love her though, man. Miss her, but they got me looking like I'm a man. That shit. That shit ain't even cool, man.
The investigation is now shifting its focus from the what to the who. Law enforcement is revisiting the procedural details with a new factual gravity.
Tired of the lies and everything, what they said I did. I know for a fact it wasn't true. I didn't headlock her. I didn't beat her with the door. I only try to diffuse the situation. They keep deflecting away from that. And what I did what they saying I did made it sound harsh, and I didn't do that. So we need justice. We need justice to be served too, the truth. And they keep deflecting from it.
They are looking at the inconsistencies in Carlos's initial statements. The timeline shifts that he claimed were due to shock, but now look like calculated attempts to cover his tracks. Language choices that felt slightly off at the time, speaking of Romeca as a burden or a complication, are now being viewed through the lens of his secret affair. This is a story about the pursuit of control. Carlos didn't just want a new life. He wanted to exit his old one without the embarrassment of a public failure. He wanted to maintain his image as the good man while actively destroying the woman who loved him. But secrets have a way of seeking the light. 5 months of silence have been undone by a single bombshell, proving once again that silence is not peace, it is merely a stay of execution. The bombshell dropped by Carlos's friend acts as a psychological key, unlocking a door that Carlos had spent 5 months trying to weld shut. This isn't just a story of a wandering eye, it's a study in compartmentalization. According to the friend's testimony, the secret affair wasn't a recent development or a momentary lapse. It was a parallel existence. Carlos had been leading a double life for nearly a year, creating 2 distinct versions of himself: the devoted partner to Romeca and the unburdened, carefree man in the shadows. This revelation shatters the narrative of the sudden tragedy. We now see that the psychological withdrawal we observed in the months leading up to Romeca's death was actually the result of Carlos's energy being diverted into this fantasy escape. He wasn't depressed or overwhelmed by work. He was busy maintaining a second set of emotions, a second set of promises, and a second set of lies. The friend describes Carlos as being almost clinical in his management of the 2 women, scheduling time, deleting messages, and shifting his personality between the 2 worlds with a terrifyingly smooth transition. The affair partner, as revealed by the friend, represents the exact opposite of the life Carlos shared with Romeca. Where Romeca represented shared history, responsibility, and the messy, beautiful reality of a long-term commitment, the other woman represented a blank slate. She was the fantasy made flesh, someone who didn't know the real Carlos, who didn't hold him accountable for his failures, and who offered him a version of himself that was perpetually successful and unburdened. To Carlos, Romeca became a mirror that reflected his true, flawed self, while the affair was a window into a life he felt he deserved. When we look at the financial records through this new lens, the cracks become chasms. There were unexplained withdrawals, dinner reservations. For two in cities he claimed to be visiting for business, and small anonymous gifts that Romeca never received. These weren't just financial discrepancies. They were the transactional evidence of his betrayal. While Romeca was budgeting for their future, Carlos was funding his escape. The imbalance here is not just emotional, it is foundational. He was literally stealing from the life they built together to build a life she wasn't allowed to see. The friend's testimony also sheds light on Carlos's mental state in the days immediately following Romeca's death. Far from the image of the shattered lover he presented to the public, the friend describes a man who seemed relieved. There was an eerie pragmatism to his questions. He wasn't asking how to grieve. He was asking how long he had to wait before he could move on without raising suspicion. He was already auditing the optics of his new freedom. The bombshell isn't just that he had an affair. It's that the affair made Romeca an obstacle that needed to be removed for his fantasy to become his reality. Investigation-wise, this new information has triggered a procedural re-examination of the timeline of indifference. Detectives are now looking at the pings from Carlos's secondary device, a phone Romeca didn't know existed. The pings place him in locations that directly contradict his alibi. More importantly, they show a flurry of activity in the hours surrounding the tragedy, not to emergency services, but to the affair partner. He was checking in with his future while his past was still cooling on the floor. The language choices he used in his initial interviews now carry a sinister double meaning. When he spoke of wanting peace or needing a fresh start, the world thought he was mourning. Now, we know he was planning. He was using the vocabulary of grief to describe his desire for erasure. The bombshell has stripped away the camouflage of perfection and revealed a man whose entitlement was so absolute that he felt he could simply delete a human being from his life to clear the way for a secret. The legal fallout of this bombshell revelation has been nothing short of a systemic collapse for Carlos. As the details of the secondary device were corroborated by forensic digital analysis, the grieving partner persona was formally retired by the prosecution. In the light of 2026, we see a man whose defense has pivoted from tragic accident to a desperate, fragmented scramble for mitigation. But the court and the public have little room for mitigation when the evidence shows a man who was texting his future while his present was being extinguished. The bombshell didn't just provide a motive, it provided a sequence of intent. Romeca's legacy, 5 months later, is being reclaimed by those who truly knew her. For too long, her name was tethered to Carlos's narrative, a victim in a story he authored.
I just want to say thank you, Lord.
Yes.
Thank you. Justice, please. I just want justice. I don't want to fight with nobody. I don't want to argue with nobody. I just want justice for my daughter. And I want peace in my family. This has been such a hard 3 months. It's been painful. It's been we've been torn apart. One of the leaders of our family, she was the baby, but she was the leader. The holidays are not holidays. I'm just grateful to God. And I am happy on today's verdict. I thank you. And all I want is to be done, is justice to be done. I want justice so I can have a peace and mind. It won't bring her back, but it will be a little peace now. It feel like a big bundle just been lifted off my head and my heart.
Carlos is doing great. He has always been doing great. He has a strong mother. He has a strong grandmother. He has strong aunties. He has strong uncles. He has a village. Carlos may be hurt for the rest of his life, but we make sure he see rainbows in his clouds.
Yeah, amen.
Okay?
But today, her family and the investigators are putting the pieces of her agency back together. She wasn't a complication in his life. She was a vibrant, hopeful woman who was betrayed by the very person she was trying to protect. Her legacy is one of resilience and the search for truth, a search that finally bore fruit when a single voice decided that the weight of a secret was too heavy to carry. As we reach the conclusion of this investigation, we are forced to look at the price of a double life.
You want to say something to her, look down at your heart. And whatever you say to her, say it to her right there. The same way I have to do. I have to look right here. And I have to talk to her. And ask her, just tell me what happened. And then she wrote him a note in his lunchbox. And on the back of the note, he responded and said, I love you more, Mom. How did she just walk away? How? When they told you that he had her in the headlock, how did he even walk away? Why did they was so easy to walk away? They tell me, look at the video, they bumping fences. I don't know about any of that because I really can't even focus. That's a game that was played and it was premeditated.
Blackman worked 2 jobs and was studying to become a registered nurse. Her school awarded her mom a pin posthumously.
You had an opportunity to walk away, to call the police, to turn around and get in your car and drive off. You did none of the above.
Carlos believed he could live in 2 worlds without either of them bleeding into the other. He believed his entitlement gave him the right to a clean slate, regardless of the cost to anyone else. But a life built on a void eventually collapses into it. The secret affair wasn't a path to freedom. It was the blueprint for his incarceration. He traded a woman who loved him for a fantasy that didn't exist, and in doing so, he ensured that he would spend the rest of his life in a reality he can never escape. The silence that followed Romeca's death for 5 long months was not a sign of peace. It was the sound of a lie holding its breath.
I just want to say thank you, Lord.
Yes.
Thank you. Justice, please. I just want justice. I don't want to fight with nobody. I don't want to argue with nobody. I just want justice for my daughter. And I want peace in my family. This has been such a hard 3 months. It's been painful. It's been we've been torn apart. One of the leaders of our family, she was the baby, but she was the leader. The holidays are not holidays. I'm just grateful to God.
Now that the truth has been spoken, we are reminded that some crimes are not just acts of violence. They are acts of erasure. But Romeca refused to be erased. Through the evidence, through the testimonies, and through the courage of a friend who finally spoke up, her voice has returned to tell the story that Carlos tried so hard to bury. I want to thank you for following this deep dive investigation. We believe that by looking into the shadows, we can help bring the truth into the light. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel. And before you go, I'd love to know your thoughts on this bombshell revelation. Does it change how you see the initial tragedy? Leave a comment below. It helps us keep the conversation focused on justice and remembrance. Truth is a patient thing, but it is also relentless. Until we open the next file, stay observant, stay compassionate, and remember that no secret stays hidden forever.